G'day, it's fugitive Australian journalist Shane Dowling from the website kangaroocourtofaustralia.com. Now tomorrow, Thursday the 11th of August 2022, I'll be publishing an article in relation to Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and the Labor government and how well they look like performing in relation to human rights and whistleblower protections. And I'll be covering obviously whistleblowers such as war crimes whistleblower David McBride, ATO whistleblower Richard Boyle, Bernard Collaery, etc. And I'll also look at Julia Gillard and her attack on WikiLeaks back in December 2010, because I think on the face of it we're all expecting Prime Minister Anthony Albanese to do a lot better than former Prime Minister Scott Morrison in relation to protecting whistleblowers and also human rights, because they Scott Morrison was obviously attacked whistleblowers in a major way, and they really focused on them, especially government whistleblowers, because the last thing Scott Morrison wanted was whistleblowers highlighting the corruption within his government, which is obviously rotten to the core. There's a widespread corruption going on. So I think the expectation is that Prime Minister Anthony Albanese will do a lot better, and he'll protect whistleblowers and I use human rights, and I talk about that in relation to whistleblowers. There's a Queensland Human Rights Act, and I believe that gives me a certain amount of protection. There's currently an arrest warrant issued in New South Wales for my arrest in relation to contempt of court. I was found guilty there. That was on application. It wasn't the court who instituted those proceedings. It was 7 West Media and 7 Network on the instructions of Kerry Stokes. They wanted to silence me as a whistleblower, blowing the whistle on corruption in relation to Kerry Stokes and Channel 7 over a number of years. And they instituted numerous slap lawsuits trying to silence me. And in this particular one lawsuit, it was an extension of their numerous lawsuits just trying to silence me. Anyhow, but they did issue an arrest warrant, and the court was very happy to, because obviously I've blown the whistle on numerous corrupt judges, probably up to 20 in the New South Wales Supreme Court. So they were more than happy to stitch me up. But the problem they've got is that I was denied a fair trial. I know it, they know it, and anyone who has a close look at it knows it. In Queensland, where I'm living now, and I have done since 2019, that's where I'm originally from, there's a Human Rights Act that gives me a certain amount of protection, I believe, and that's still to be tested in court, obviously, but entitled to a fair trial. And the Supreme Court and Kerry Stokes and 7 West Media all know I wasn't given a fair trial, and that's easily provable. So if they were to try to extradite me, well, they could hit a brick wall just on the Queensland Human Rights Act alone. Obviously there's numerous other legal arguments I could run as well. I think that's important because that is something the federal government and every state should look at introducing to protect whistleblowers. Because while it's a Human Rights Act, it does afford certain protections to whistleblowers as well, I believe. Richard Boyle is a classic case. They're trying to introduce, they've applied for suppression orders on at least part of the evidence, maybe a lot of the evidence. I'm not too sure. There's a suppression order on that at the moment. So we don't know exactly what they're trying to achieve, but it sounds like at least part of the evidence, if not a lot of it, they're trying to suppress. Now, as a whistleblower, if there was whistleblower laws, if the Human Rights Act in South Australia, where he's currently getting prosecuted, or Federal Human Rights Act, obviously they would have part of that would be a right to a fair trial, like the Queensland Human Rights Act. And that would probably put a stop to the attempt to have suppression orders on it, because suppression orders is obviously an attack on a fair trial and undermines open justice as well. So I talk about that in the article tomorrow, and also we have a look at the video of Julia Gillard from 2010, where she's attacked Julian Assange and WikiLeaks, in effect saying that it acted illegally. And I wrote an article in 2011 after I'd set the website up. I'd only set it up in January 2011, so I was a bit late to the party, so to speak, but I pointed out the hypocrisy of Julia Gillard, because prior to that, I think it was 2006, 2007, she complained to the media about being falsely accused of criminal activity in relation to helping her then boyfriend, Bruce Wilson, rip off the Australian Workers Union. And she complained to a journalist saying, "Oh, look, I've been falsely accused in the media, how disgusting." Well, in 2010, December 2010, she did exactly the same thing to WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, said what they did was illegal. Well, she couldn't identify any crime that had been committed. She referred it to the federal police. They couldn't identify any crime. There was no crime. And she's a lawyer. She knew. It's absolutely disgusting. So let's have a listen to that video now.
On Friday, your comments when you said the WikiLeaks case was illegal. What Australian laws do you think Julian Assange has broken?
The foundation stone of this WikiLeaks issue is an illegal act. The foundation stone of it is an illegal act. Information was taken and that was illegal. So let's not try and put any glosses on this. It would not happen. Information would not be on WikiLeaks if there had not been an illegal act undertaken.
But that happens with whistleblowers leaking information often. That doesn't necessarily mean the person who then brings that information to the public light has committed an illegal act, does it?
But what the Australian Federal Police is going to provide the government with some advice about potential criminal conduct of the individual involved. People would be aware that there's also the issue of a warrant relating to an alleged sexual assault in Sweden. What I would say about the publication of the WikiLeaks information is it's grossly irresponsible. And anybody who looks at the pages of today's newspaper and sees that things like critical infrastructure lists are being put on WikiLeaks would, as a matter of just common sense, understand how grossly irresponsible this is.
But Ms Gillard, that relates to the law in another country, the actual giving out of the information. The question, I think, was about Australian law. Have you had any preliminary advice from the Federal Police? And they've had now some time to give such advice. Why is it taking so long?
I haven't received advice yet, and obviously our Federal Police go through thorough processes before providing such advice. But I've been asked about this matter a number of times, and I want to be clear about my attitude to it. Foundation stone is an illegal act that certainly breached the laws of the United States of America. The individual involved, there are potential matters arising from Sweden and the warrant there. Then, of course, we've got the Australian Federal Police looking to see whether Australian laws have been broken, and then we've got the common sense test about the gross irresponsibility of this conduct.
So the point about Julia Gillard is this, that while we should have high hopes for Prime Minister Anthony Albanese doing the right thing, and maybe even some confidence that he'll do the right thing, and I suppose in hindsight, reflecting back on the recent past, it's highly unlikely he'll do as bad as Scott Morrison and his government did with their attacks on whistleblowers. But we need to remember Julia Gillard, a Labor government, attacked a whistleblower like Julian Assange. So if they did that to him, they can potentially do it to other whistleblowers. Now, they've done the right thing in relation to Bernard Collaery. They've dropped the charges against him. But what about David McBride and Richard Boyle? They're still following through with the charges, and like I've just said, they've applied to have suppression orders put on the Richard Boyle trial, which is very disturbing. Now, there'll be a link to my website in the description box, and tomorrow I'll update it with a link to the actual article on YouTube I'm talking about. And please share this video on Twitter, Facebook, etc. And if you visit my website, please join up for the free email subscription, and every time I post an article, you'll get an email letting you know there's a new article there to be read. And when you sign up for the subscription, you'll get an email asking you to confirm it, just to make sure I'm getting no junk mail, etc. And please visit my shop and check out the new Kangaroo Court of Australia t-shirts. Other than that, thank you for your time and have a good day.